Today, let's talk about how to create a cruise reservation app using appReef's platform as a service. Before we go about creating an application using actual application or platform as a service, let's talk about the data model used for the application. The data model for the cruise reservation application consists of 5 entities: ship, cruise, reservation, passenger, and room. A ship can have many cruises. A ship is basically a actual physical ship, and the cruise are uh, the trips the ship sails on different dates. And a cruise can have many reservations, and the reservation ties the passenger and the rooms. Let's review the fields that are required for each one of these entities. As you can see, ship has a name, length, the number of rooms, and the ship number. A cruise can have a name such as Bahamas, Mexico, etc. A departure date, the arrival date, and the departure port. Passenger has name and address information. Room has a category, room number, and a room type. Room type basically is oceanic view, balcony view, etc. A reservation ties passenger information with the room and assigns a number. And a cruise can have multiple reservations. Let's talk more about how to create an application now. Here I'm logging in as jray at appReef.com, who is a test user for appReef platform as a service, and he has administrative rights. He is logging in to appReef platform to create an application now for the cruise application. Once he logs in, on the top you will see a welcome note welcoming the user, and in it's a drop down menu which presents various options for creating an application. So user goes to setup, and once he goes to setup, it presents the admin console for the user to create an application. Clicking on the orange icon presents the user the option to create an application. It has 6 fields. The first field is the actual application label that we want to give, that is a cruise reservation, and the 5 objects that we discussed in the data model. Let's go about creating that application now. Okay, I have entered the information for the application and all the 5 objects that we need for the data model. Now let's submit this, and the application will get created instantly. That's it, the application is created now. All we have to do now is to select that application that we just created, is this, as you can see it in the list of applications. Let's select that application and see what objects are visible. Yeah, we can see those 5 objects that we created from the data model visible here, but they don't have any fields. So we'd have to actually add fields to each one of the entities that we created for the application. Let's go start adding the applications for each one of those objects. Let's start by adding fields to the ship. Click Add Field here, which presents an option for creating various fields. Name is automatically created for every object that is in the system, so we don't have to create the name explicitly. Let's add the length field, which is of type integer, and default format, let's take it as default text field and give it as a name, as label for that is length. The length is field is automatically populated, and let's call this mandatory. And the default value, let's say 500 feet as the minimum. All right. Saving this would create the field in the system for the data model. Now you can see that field that we added just now is created here, length. Now if you go back to the application again, you will see it no longer shows add new field because the minimum number of fields has already been added. Let's go ahead and complete the ship object and create all the fields necessary for the creation of a ship record. Let's go back to setup again, and here in the objects custom, it will list out all the objects that are created for this for the application. So as you can see, there's a object called ship and fields. So I would like to add one more field called number of rooms, and it's integer as well. And I want it to be up down button, and it has to be default currency format, and it's mandatory. Let's say default value is minimum of 100. Okay, the ship number of rooms is now been added. Let's go add the ship number. Let that be a text field and we call it ship number. It's mandatory as well, and we want to make sure we don't want to allow duplicates for that. And let's the default size of that is 40 characters. Let's save that now. Now what we did just now is we created all the fields necessary for ship. Let's go see how the record looks. If I go here, the left side of the menu will show all the objects that are in the required for this application. Clicking ship will have options for adding a new record. Let's say we want to add new ship. Now, as you can see, all these fields that we created now are visible. We can move around these fields to different location or reorder them as we need, which we'll talk about it later in a different presentation. Just like for ship, I'll go ahead and create fields for all the other objects that we have in the data model. So we have 4 more objects for which we need to add fields. So I'm going to add that now quickly, and I'll come back to this page in a minute. I want to create a drop-down list for departure ports for all the cruisers. So let's say I want to pick the option of a pick list. Now in the pick list, I will call it departure port, and I want to make it mandatory, and at the same time I want it to be a manual pick list where I tell what fields, what values I want in the pick list. I want Houston and Galveston. Okay, save to add the pick list to the object. Similarly, I want to go ahead and add the fields for the other 3 objects. I'll resume in a minute. Now that we have created every single object that is needed for the application, you can see all the objects listed on the home page for the cruise reservation application. The user can easily switch between applications by simply selecting the cogwheel here and change the application. Now let's review the fields that we just created. We looked at the cruise, and these are all the fields for the cruise. The passenger, first name, last name, gender, state, city, and address. The room, category, room number, type, and name. Ship itself has a ship name, ship number, room, and length. So we just created an application in a matter of minutes. The entire application is highly customizable. We can create single column view, multi-column view, we can rearrange the fields, or we can also connect these objects through relationships. We will talk about that in more detail in the next video, and thank you for watching.